This is fantasy versus reality. The academics have artificially made the Greeks the fathers of history, and all knowledge as we know it. They were late players to the game, born into history itself, as students. The Egyptians had no desire to publish the teachings of their mysteries to the barbarians, at the ends of the earth. The reality of Western Europe is that it never added much to ancient philosophy, or history, in any way significant to Egypt, Mesopotamia, or Ethiopia. Observe the blueprint for modern Eurocentric thought. Build the ancient Greeks up into the master of all things. Pretend we were Greeks ourselves, and annihilate Egypt as the source of anything worthwhile. The more UFOs and phony Arabian theories, the better. This is where fantasy versus reality comes into play. Egyptian knowledge gets alien spaceships and invisible people, while Greek knowledge gets universities. The Greeks rejected and persecuted philosophy. It came from outside and contained strange ideas. This prejudice led to the policy of persecution. The Greek leaders hated and persecuted philosophy. Again, it was Egyptian and foreign to their Greek minds. The organization, control and operation of the mysteries gave the Egyptians the right of ownership to Greek philosophy itself. Any fantasy claims made by Eurocentric professors today, given to the Greeks, must be considered dishonest. Anaxagoras was indicted, escaped from prison and fled to Ionia in exile. Socrates was executed. Plato fled to Megara, and Aristotle was indicted. This policy of the Greeks would be meaningless if it didn't indicate that philosophy was alien to the Greek mentality. I repeat, philosophy started out as alien to the Greek mind. We imagine an age of men sitting under Mediterranean trees, writing mythologies. It all sounds so romantic to the modern Eurocentric. But this period of Greek philosophy, Thales to Aristotle, was a period of internal war among the city-states, and external war with their common enemy, the Persians. The Greeks lived in perpetual internal strife and perpetual fear of annihilation by their common enemy. They would have no time to study nature. This required the riches and wealth of the rich classes. The Greeks were too needy to engage in such pursuits, unlike the Egyptians. This is one of the reasons why the Greek philosophers were so few, and why the Greeks were in fact unacquainted with philosophy. Despite the vast quantity of books inherited from Alexander's adventures in Egypt, Greek philosophy degenerated into a system of borrowed ideas known as eclecticism. This system contained nothing new, in spite of the great treasure of knowledge they had obtained from Africa. The Persian conquest of Egypt removed immigration restrictions against the Greeks. It was only then that Greek research encouraged students from Ionia and elsewhere to visit Egypt for their education. Previously, the Greek would have been unimportant to Egypt. A little fact often glossed over by eurocentric professors of history. The Greeks made the best of their chance to learn what they could about Egypt. Most students received instruction directly from the Egyptian priests. Traveling across the islands of the Aegean Sea, the mysteries of Egypt had slowly penetrated the warlike Greek mind. Having been perpetually at war, they were astounded by what they found and sat at the foot of Africa. It was the custom of ancient armies to search for treasures in libraries and temples. Accordingly, Alexander and his friends accompanying him ransacked Egypt's libraries to help themselves. Under the Ptolemies, a thirst for the mysteries of Egypt compelled them to use native Egyptian professors. Linguistic difficulties being one of many reasons. Apart from the looting of libraries and the conversion of Egypt's knowledge for their own education, the Greeks had another way of adopting the culture of the Egyptians. The Ptolemies commandeered useful information from the Egyptian high priests. Ptolemy Soter commanded the high priest Manetho to write a history of religion and philosophy of the Egyptians. These volumes became chief books in Alexandria. The professors represent the early life and education of Greek philosophers as blank and mysterious. This makes their chronologies a matter of speculation. The Greek philosophers, with the exception of the three Athenians, might never have existed and might never have taught the doctrines alleged to them. After the invasion of Alexander, the royal temples and libraries were plundered and pillaged. Egypt, as the teacher, was replaced by her eager student. More recently, we Anglophiles have made Greece our mascot and the foundation for all things white and Western. By being the ones to romanticize the ancient Greeks, we Anglophiles can attach ourselves to not only ancient Greece, but to the very mysteries of Egypt. Mysteries we never knew until we went to Egypt. Ultimately, what we're left with is Herodotus, now the magic father of history. Yet, the Euro clown continues to debate his magic father's history. The professors of the West, of the academic empire, have regulated history to a virtual comic book of Eurocentric fantasy stories. For centuries, the world has been misled about the original source of the arts and sciences of the Western world. For centuries, Socrates, Plato and Aristotle have been falsely idolized as models of intellectual greatness. And for the past few centuries, Western Europe has had the honor of transmitting to the world the introduction of the arts and sciences, ignoring the fact that we ourselves had absolutely nothing to do with the Greeks whatsoever. Northwest Europeans, in general, were inconsequential to the macro history of Greece and Egypt. Which is how we ended up with our fantasy Greek philosophers. People today must cultivate methods of action against the false worship of Greek intellect, and must demand a change in policy at the highest levels. Theodosius and Justinian issued edicts, closing down the Egyptian mysteries. Edicts of different sorts are still thrown out today by the European critics to shut down any light being exposed on their fantasy versions of history. This is fantasy versus reality.